Welcome to Security Token Stories, brought to you by Security Token Academy, the leading educational platform dedicated to covering and facilitating the security token industry. I'm Derek Edward Schloss, Director of Strategy at Security Token Academy. Coming up on today's podcast, we have David Hoffman, Chief of Operations at Realty, an Ethereum-based platform for tokenizing real property ownership in the United States. Realty empowers investors around the globe to buy into the U.S. real estate market through compliant, fractional, tokenized ownership, powered by blockchain. Realty's first tokenized properties are single-family homes in Detroit, Michigan. David, good to have you on Security Token Stories. Before we get started today, I just want to let you know I'm a listener to your podcast, POV Crypto, where you and your co-host Christian have done an excellent job over the last few months tracking the evolution of the blockchain space from each of your unique points of view, you from an Ethereum perspective and Christian from a Bitcoin perspective. A few episodes back, you opened up about your work in the space as Chief of Operations at Realty. And after learning more about that project, I thought you'd be an excellent guest to jump on Security Token Stories.
Yeah, Derek, thanks for having me on, and thanks for the kind words about POV Crypto. POV has been a very fun endeavor, both from me and Christian. We kind of started it with the interest of breaking down echo chambers, but we've gotten the added benefit of really sharpening each other's sticks. So it really works symbiotically, both good for our listeners and good for us as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to follow. So as we get started, I'd love to hear about how you got involved in blockchain and a bit about your excitement for Ethereum and how that interest kind of found you working on the Realty project.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a story that has multiple hops. And so I'll try and skip through them as efficiently as possible. I was on my way to physical therapy school studying for the GRE. And this was in the middle of 2017 during the run-up. And I remember on all the gaming subreddits that people were complaining about how high priced GPUs were because all the miners were snatching them up. And so that kind of struck my curiosity. And I was like, well, I have a GPU. Why is this so valuable all of a sudden? And that led to me mining Ethereum. And then learning that I could make like $4 to $5 a day just mining Ethereum, which was going to be really useful while I'm in a mass amount of debt going into physical therapy school. So I wanted to scale that operation up, and all of a sudden there were 4 mining computers scattered out through the corners of my house while I was trying to study my way into PT school. But when you have all those miners, you kind of are incentivized to figure out what the hell they're actually doing. And so that's when I kind of fell down the proverbial rabbit hole. And I quickly found myself learning and researching all things crypto economics, finance, startups, ICOs, tokens, white papers, the whole thing just fell really hard down the rabbit hole. And I kind of watched myself neglect my duty to be diligent with applying for PT school. And I wasn't studying for the GRE, but I was instead reading white papers. And the tipping point came when I went to ETH Denver in 2018. February 2018. And that's when I met a lot of people. I went in going no one, still not understanding much about crypto. But I spent all 3 days there, and just the people who I talked to and the connections I made and the conversations I have really let me know that this was the space that I wanted to be in. And I was also supposed to go and tour Boulder. The Boulder's PT program was pretty good, but I just never went. I just never left the conference. I just stayed there and continued to talk to people. And so when I got back home, I realized that what I was doing was, changing paths. And I needed to, come to terms with the fact that I was far more interested in crypto than I was in PT. And so that's when I got a job at New Alchemy, as a kind of a marketer blog writer, because I had started writing of my own accord in this space, and that kind of gave me the legs I needed to stand on to help New Alchemy, which was an ICO advisory company, with my services to various ICOs. Obviously, that business model did not work out as 2018 went on.
Sure.
New Alchemy went away, and I got picked up by Bunker Capital, which was a security token advisory agency. So a lot more serious, a lot more organized, a lot more focused on the correct way to issue a security token on Ethereum, doing it with much bigger companies So instead of having many clients, Bunker just had a few clients. And one of those clients was Realty. And I got brought on through Realty, became the COO for Realty, and that's kind of where we spun out Realty into the company that it is today. And it's been a very fun process.
Let's talk a little bit about why you believe maybe it's just traditional real estate, and whether that's single family homes or commercial real estate, why it's such a disruptive opportunity for tokenization. What problems currently exist with the way real estate is owned or transferred, and how might blockchain-based securities streamline some of those conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to give credit to where credit's due. Realty was just the brainchild of Remy Jacobson, the CEO, who definitely has one very solid foot in the world of cryptocurrency and his other foot in the world of real estate. He was a real estate investor before the word crypto or Bitcoin was ever around. And then he was an avid Bitcoin miner in 2010, 2011, 2012. And it's actually this very interesting relationship where real estate is this tried and true industry that goes back thousands of years as an industry, and then crypto is just the most bleeding edge financial industry there is. And these go together really well. Real estate, in what I've learned about real estate in my time at Realty, is that it's really the backbone industry of the human species as a whole. Wherever there is successful humans, there's going to be valuable real estate. Industrialization and urbanization created these forces that force the concentration of valuable work to be done in local, small geographic areas, which is where the high value of real estate comes from. Not a lot of people know, but real estate, depending on who you ask, is anywhere between like 1/2 and 2/3 of total US or total global wealth. It's the biggest industry by wealth there is, and so it's when it comes to democratizing access to real estate investment, there's really no good way to do that because of how high priced it is. Like the average property is $200,000. That's the average cost of a single family home in the United States, and no one, like very few people, have $200,000 in cash, which is why we all need a mortgage. And as soon as you take out a mortgage, it stops becoming an investment and it starts becoming just kind of a life goal. It starts becoming a place to live. And that's fine. But when real estate is like the backbone investment of humans, and it's always going to be that way, if humans are successful, there's going to be a real estate industry. And that's why it's really important to make sure that we can all access this, because it's a very stable investment vehicle. And the fact that it's becoming more and more expensive to invest in real estate is where I think blockchains come in re-democratizing access to real estate. And that's what we want to do at Realty.
I think this is a great transition, a segue into how the Realty platform works. What's the quick elevator pitch for what Realty is trying to solve, and how the platform works, and what your goals are kind of building the platform over time?
Yeah, totally. And it's actually pretty simple. So each individual, and all the properties on Realty are currently single family homes. We do have one 13-unit apartment coming very soon, which is really exciting. But they're all like residential, right? And so each property is owned by its own unique LLC. And so that single LLC owns one property. And we, instead of having shares of an LLC, and an LLC is just a company, right? Instead of there being shares issued by paper, we issue shares as tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. And so when you buy a token, you buy a share of a company, and what that company does is do one thing and one thing only, which is own the property. So you can kind of abstract away the LLC in your head, because it doesn't do anything else other than own the property. Its one function is to do that. So when you buy the token, you're really just buying the property. And so I like to say that Realty is 90% legal, 10% blockchain. And the blockchain part of things lets you abstract away the legal part of things. So when you're buying a token, you're basically buying a digital deed, because that's what's on the other end of the token. It's just you have this single purpose entity, LLC, that does one thing, which is own the property. And you just scale that up to a number of properties, which each one with their own LLC, and then boom, you have Realty.
So As an investor, I come onto the Realty platform. When I find a property that's interesting to me, let's just say it's a single family home in Detroit, and I want to have direct exposure to that specific property, and I decide to buy tokens, which represent units in this LLC. Why am I seeing this as potentially a strong investment vehicle?
Right. So our real estate team, which is a team of experts, have gone out and selected properties that are specifically tend to be very hot in international markets. Realty is currently only open to international investors. And so we've picked single family properties specifically in Detroit because Detroit is very hot internationally, and they also produce a pretty high ratio of rent to cost of the property. So our first property, 9943 Marlowe, is $63,000+, and it produces $800 a month in rent. And so that ratio is pretty crazy. Like $800 a month is close to what I pay here in Seattle, in a house that's over $1 million. Not my house. And so the ratio is very, very strong. And so that's something called the cap rate. The cap rate is the ratio of rental payments to the cost of the property. And so we specifically gone after properties that have a very high cap rate, because when you buy this token, you're right, you don't get a house. You get a token that is a share of a company that owns a house. Yeah, we are not going to mail you keys. You don't get to go in the house because there's a tenant in there, and you need 100% of all the tokens in order to actually gain access to the deed and then close out the LLC if you wanted to do that. So there's a little bit of a missing, like, what do you actually get? You get this ERC 20 token into your Ethereum wallet, and then you get the DAI payments coming in every single day. So since we're not hindered by the antiquated banking system, we don't have to wait every 30 days to send you your rental payments. We send them to you on a daily basis. And so that's kind of how we solved the what do I get problem. We send you our line that we like to use is you buy real tokens today, and the tokens on Realty are called real tokens. You buy real tokens today and you'll get your first rent payment tomorrow. And so it kind of gives people some amount of insurance that, yes, there is something on the other end of this token. I can see that because there's DAI flowing into my Ethereum wallet on a daily basis.
That's great. So I'm investing in a property. There's potential capital appreciation that can accrue if that property is ever sold.
Correct.
In the meantime, I'm also getting these rent payments every day. And there's something I want to unpack in there. You mentioned I'm getting DAI payments. And for those that are unfamiliar with stablecoins and DAI, can you give a quick background on what exactly DAI is and why you've chosen DAI as opposed to some of the other regulated stablecoins that we've seen, like Gemini's GUSD or Circle's USDC, which are fiat-backed US dollar stablecoins? I guess, is using DAI a decision of convenience, or are you making a deliberate choice to choose a more decentralized stablecoin for the platform?
Yeah, so in the future, we're going to be able to provide all of our customers with their choice of stablecoin. But for now, we've picked DAI. And DAI just has the very significant advantage of being censorship resistant. We want to pay the property investors something akin to cash. And in a peer-to-peer payment of cash, if I'm standing next to you, that's censorship resistant and it's immediately in your hands. And that's what DAI emulates. No one can revoke your DAI. And so it was the easy choice just for that reason. It's true to the nature of cryptocurrencies.
So on the other side, if you're a tenant living in the property, maybe we can walk through how this process looks from their perspective. Is this all abstracted away from their rental payments? Are they still paying rent on the first of the month? And then how is that rent getting translated into a stable coin, which is the rent would go into a smart contract on Ethereum, and then I guess the rent income would be just paid out daily to Realty token holders?
Yep. So the way that this works is that the tenant pays a property management company their rent. So the tenant may not even know that they are living in a Realty property because everything is managed by the property management company. And it's the obligation of the property management company to make sure that the property is rented as much as possible. And if it's not, then they don't get money either, right? So they're incentivized to have that renter uptime, right? And so then the property management company takes their fee, which is 5%, which is extremely competitive. Other property management companies, I can't really remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's somewhere between like 10, 12, and maybe 15% for traditional property management companies. So we have an extremely awesome competitive edge there. And then the property management company swaps the rental payment for DAI and then sends it out on a daily basis to all the real token holders.
I guess, who are you envisioning potential owners of the real tokens to be? Are they high net worth individuals? Are they the tenants themselves? I guess, how are you thinking about, as this underpins the thesis that you brought up at the beginning about democratization of access, and how are you thinking about the intended audience for these real tokens over time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's kind of one of the cool things about producing a piece of technology that democratizes access to something is you don't really know who you're going to be picked up by first. Because the whole point of democratizing access is giving access to as many people as possible. We've already, like in the first few weeks of opening up the first property on Realty, we had investors from all 6 populated continents. When we get one from Antarctica, I'll let you know. But yeah, so we've had investors from Argentina. We've had investors from Denmark. I think our latest purchase came from Hong Kong. I would say that there is an interest in Hong Kong so far more than others, but it's really been pretty evenly spread throughout the globe. And in terms of investor net worth, like we don't really know, right? Like we just see who they are on the back end, but we don't like ask for their bank details, right? It's just a traditional KYC. So we don't really know what the investor type is. We can kind of guesstimate by the size of the order, and we've had pretty varying order sizes as well. So it's actually really hasn't become clear as to what kind of user is Realty being picked up the most by, which I actually think is great. It really just means that we've been able to offer our services to anyone. And that's kind of the benefit of being able to sell real estate starting at $63.75. Like you don't really restrict any population like that.
Is there plans to open up real tokens to those who want it here in the States?
Right. So Reg D is just a filing, right? So we could do that pretty quick. If we wanted to sell to just accredited investors inside the United States, it's kind of not true to the vision of Realty, right? We want to sell to everyone. So we have our eyes on a Reg A. And a Reg A would allow us to sell to any U.S. investor, any 18-year-old and older U.S. investor. And that's where Realty can really have its maximum access.
I'd love to talk about how you're envisioning the expansion of Realty over time. So you're starting with single family homes. Do you plan to expand out to other categories outside of single family homes, other regions outside of the US? Are you considering baskets of Realty tokens so investors could create their own REITs so that Realty customers could have specific exposure to really hyper localized locations like single family homes in Santa Monica, California? How are you thinking about the platform and the growth of the platform over time?
Yeah, totally. So single family homes are just kind of where we started with because of that high cap rate that I mentioned. And then we also have our first 13 unit apartment home coming online. And really there's no limit to what we can put inside of an LLC, right? And so the next on our list is Cleveland and then LA. And we intend on having a property in every single major US city by the end of 2020. That's our goal. And like you said, you referred to baskets of tokens. That's definitely something that I'm super duper interested in. Imagine having a single family home basket or a more specific single family home Detroit basket. And then you could also have a Detroit like wide variety of property types basket. And you can really get pretty granular with this. The problem with that is you start to reduce fungibility. And so there's a balance here, right? We want to allow our users to make any sorts of baskets that they want them to, and they'll be able to make them on their own, right? Like Set Protocol is pretty open with how users can generate baskets.
This is a fantastic transition into some of the protocols that are on Ethereum, and maybe you can, David, walk through how you envision RealT's interaction with Ethereum and why you chose Ethereum as the underlying blockchain to build RealT, and then how it may over time start interacting more and more with some of these DeFi protocols like Dharma or Maker or Set. And you've written about Ethereum and you speak pretty eloquently about protocol Legos on Ethereum. How do you envision these two things interacting together and just tokenized real world assets fitting in this, DeFi Ethereum ecosystem over time?
Right. So we totally could have issued real tokens on any number of other blockchains. Tezos is one. We could have done it on EOS, any smart contracting platform. But the obvious choice is Ethereum because that's where all the other assets are. And it's very important, financially speaking, and not financially for RealT, but finance as a global financial system, that all of the financial assets play in the same playground. Because that's what finance is. And so because Ethereum has already hit this escape velocity of all these other tokenized assets are on Ethereum, therefore other tokenized assets will be on Ethereum. That is just kind of the future of the internet of value, right? That's what we mean when we say the internet of value. All of these valuable things like real estate or shares of a company or digital assets are all playing on the same network. And that network has definitely proven to be Ethereum, at least so far. And it has a pretty decent lead. With regards to the whole like money Legos meme, which is like my favorite meme, it's something that really can provide real tokens a lot of utility and value without RealT, the company, having to do anything. And that's true for any company tokenizing assets on Ethereum. If you have an asset and you put it on Ethereum, all of a sudden it has the benefit of being able to interoperate with all these other DeFi platforms. Having real tokens being able to be utilized by our customers in their preferred DeFi platform is just great. If it was lent out peer to peer through Dharma, that's just a user lending or staking equity in their property to receive a permissionless loan. And same thing for doing that. Maybe somehow, I don't know how this would work because I'm not an expert in Compound, but if you put it in Compound and you use your real tokens as collateral, well, then you can receive a loan based off of the size of your collateral. There are a number of steps involved before we get to that point, but it's definitely a vision that I have for RealT.
What does the next 3 to 5 years look like for RealT and for Ethereum?
Well, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, RealT has tokenized every single property on the face of the earth. If we fall short of that goal, I'd like RealT to be able to have presence in every single major U.S. city, and not just presence by one property, right? But like multiples of properties that generate, the money Legos of properties that we're looking for, so that our users can generate their own preferred investment vehicle based off of real tokens. A lot of questions that we get with why did we design RealT the way that we designed it instead of just doing a tokenized REIT? Well, because a tokenized REIT isn't the bottom layer. You have to tokenize the individual property, and you have to do that so that you can build things on top of that. So it's real tokens themselves each property represents its own kind of money Lego. And because it's on Ethereum, people can stack and combine these Legos as they see fit. And if we were to just tokenize a REIT, we have taken choice away from our users by doing that. And so that's why it's really important to create tokens per property. And so the way that I envision Ethereum, and to get to your question about what does Ethereum look like in 5 to 10 years, my favorite meme, like I said, money Legos, it has a corollary, which every time I see this meme on Twitter, I always post the same picture. And the caption is actual, or the Ethereum blockchain visualized. And it's one of those play tables. It's like a Lego table, and you can build stuff You can take your Legos and build on the table. And so Ethereum is the platform. And then in the future, in 5 years, there's this massive Lego city with like commerce and vehicles moving around, Lego vehicles, and it's just this Lego city that's been built up one by one by one. And so as we allow users to play with their real tokens in DeFi and in baskets, etc., this economy gets built up, and all of a sudden we have this new alternative economy that is based on Ethereum, that's on the internet, that has all these digital assets.
David, what else do you want the audience to know or understand about what you're building, whether it's the opportunity or how they can find you or how they might be able to get involved or learn more about the project?
Yeah, you can check us out at realty.co. That's RealT.co. And it's pretty cool website. We're hopefully opening up our next properties by the end of this week, if not early next week. Once you're done checking out realty.co, you can check out our blog if you want to learn more. It's available on the website. You can also check out my blog, which is on Medium at Trustless State, all one word. And then that's where you can also find me on Twitter.
David, I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning more about what you're building at RealT. Let's keep in touch and I'll keep following the project.
Awesome. Thanks, Derek. I really appreciate you having me on.
That's it for this week's episode of Security Token Stories. For more security token content, visit us online at securitytokenacademy.com and subscribe to our newsletter, The Security Token Edge, which lands in your mailbox each weekend. You can also keep up with the latest security token news by following us on Twitter, Telegram, YouTube, Facebook, and Medium. Before we go, a big thank you to Security Token Academy's Platinum and Gold corporate members who make this podcast possible. You can learn more about Security Token Academy's corporate members at securitytokenacademy.com. I'm Derek Edward Schloss. From all of us here at Security Token Academy, thanks for listening.
Security Token Academy does not provide investment or legal advice. We are not a registered broker-dealer or investment advisor. Opinions expressed in this podcast are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Security Token Academy. More information can be found on our website at securitytokenacademy.com.